Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, students, welcome back to lecture number 27 of macroeconomic course. As usual, we would like to revise the previous lecture for a couple of minutes and then we proceed for today's topic of discussion. जैसा कि आपको इल्म है, in last class we started a new topic of macroeconomics and that was about money supply and money demand. We discussed the first part of that chapter about the money supply, and we'll proceed continue with the same topic in today's lecture also. Now before we move forward, I would like to just recap what we have learned in the previous class. We learned that how banks create money supply in the economy, how banks create money in the country and the economy. In this case, we have we said that there are two systems which prevail in the country and the economy. One is the 100% reserve banking system. The other is fractional reserve banking system. Now, when we have discussed the 100% reserve banking system, we found that banks are unable to create money supply in the economy, क्योंकि जितनी currency available होती है वो सारी की सारी अपने पास as a reserve रख लेते हैं और लोन देने के लिए banks के पास कोई पैसा नहीं होता, because it is 100% reserve bank system, जिसमें बैंक जितने भी उनके पास deposits आते हैं, assets आते हैं, वो सारे के सारे as a reserves उसको अपने पास रख लेते हैं. That's why in this system banks cannot create money or money supply in the country and the economy. दूसरे जो हमने system की बात की, and we talked about the second system of banking, and that is the fractional reserve banking system. Under this system we have discussed different scenarios, और हमने ये कहा कि according to this system a certain proportion of the deposits बैंक keep reserves, right? एक certain proportion होता है जो अपने deposits का बैंक अपने पास as a reserve रख लेते हैं और जो remaining amount होती है वो loan extend कर देते हैं to the customer, to the household, right? जैसा कि आपको मालूम है, हमने बात की थी, suppose if the currency C is $1,000 initially, and then if the first bank, scenario 1, 2 में, 3 में हमने discuss, first bank में अब ये क्या होता है, in case of first bank hold 20% of the deposits, which is 1,000, almost $200 as a reserve, and $800 को आगे वो loan दे देते हैं. What happens when the individual will get a loan of $800? वो $800 किसी और बैंक में जमा करा देते हैं, $850 किसी और बैंक में जमा हो जाता है. What happens then? वो जो दूसरा बैंक है उसका 20% अपने पास रख लेते हैं और remaining जो 80% है वो उसको loan extend. So this process continue, and we have seen at the end, हमने ये देखा कि under this system $1,000 से $5,000 तक money create हो सकती है, money supply create हो सकती है. So under the fractional reserve banking systems we have seen that, we found that, हमने ये मालूम किया है, banks can create money or money supply in the country, in the economy. उसके बाद बात हमने की कि money supply or the money depends on the following factors, जिनकी हमने डिटेल में बात की. We talked about monetary base, currency deposit ratio and reserve ratio. All of the parameters or the variable can affect the money supply, money को तब्दील कर सकते हैं. So this was all about the previous lecture. Now what we are going to learn in today's class will continue with the same topic, which is money supply and money demand, and try to finish this chapter, this topic of macroeconomics in today's class. Now, the major contents that we are going to learn, we are going to study in this class are what are the ways how the federal bank or the central bank of a country can control the money supply. What are the tools of a central bank, like in case of Pakistan, it is the State Bank of Pakistan, and in case of USA, it is the Fed. So each country has a different name for the central bank, and the job of central bank is to regulate to control the money supply in the country, in the economy. So in the first part of the today's class, आज हम सीखेंगे कि किस तरह से फेड जो है, सेंट्रल बैंक जो है, मनी सप्लाई को कंट्रोल करता है, क्या तरीक़ेकार हैं, क्या मेथड्स हैं, क्या वेज हैं, राइट. सेकंड पार्ट में हम देखेंगे व्हाई द फेड कैन नॉट कंट्रोल द it precisely. Why? What are the reasons? What are the factors that why it cannot control precisely, exactly the money supply, right? In the third part of today's class, we'll discuss different theories of money demand and try to link up with the money supply. Here we'll discuss two theories of money demand. One is the portfolio theory of money supply and money demand. Second theory हम discuss करेंगे, that is the transaction theory given by Baumol-Tobin model. So we'll try to explain what Baumol says about the money demand function, what are the factors that determines the money demand in case of Baumol model, right? So these are the major contents, major lecture plan of today's class. So we'll start from the first part. Now we'll start from the first part. As I told you that in the first part we are going to discuss the ways and means how central bank or federal bank can control money supply in the economy. There are three instruments which are used to control monetary policy, to control money supply in the country and the economy. And what are those tools? If you know that, as we have discussed many times, monetary policy is one of the policy which is adopted by the Central Bank of Pakistan, the State Bank of Pakistan, or any central bank of any country. Or by using monetary policy, the job of the central bank is to control, regulate the money supply in the country and the economy. They can adopt, the banks can adopt expansionary monetary policy or contractionary monetary policy, right? It depends what is required in the economy, in the country, right? So there are three main instruments that we are going to discuss today, जिनकी आज हम बात करेंगे, जिनको एक सेंट्रल बैंक यूज कर सकता है और मनी सप्लाई को कंट्रोल कर सकता है. And these instruments are one, open market operation, second, reserve requirements, third is the discount rate. So we'll discuss all these methods of our instrument of monetary policy, how these are useful, how they can control money supply in the country, in the economy. Now the first factor, first instrument of monetary policy is the open market operation, right? Now how we define that? The purchase or sale of government bonds by the Federal Reserves or by Central Bank or by the State Bank of Pakistan. How it works? Now suppose if the Federal Bank want to control or want to increase the money supply in the country and the economy, so what it will do? Fed or Central Bank or the State Bank of Pakistan अगर money supply को बढ़ाना चाहते हैं तो क्या करेंगे? They will buy bonds from the public, right? So when they will buy bond from the public, so naturally money will go to the public, right? So the currency will increase, or when currency will increase, the money supply will also increase. It pays, it will increase the base, budgetary base, the monetary base, which is B, and therefore M will go up. And similarly, if the government wants to decrease the money supply in the country, so what it can do? They can purchase, they can sell bonds to the they can sell bond to the public, ताकि लोग बॉन्ड खरीदें, पैसा लोगों के पास से बैंक में आ जाएगा, तो मनी सप्लाई में कमी वाक़ई हो जाएगी, राइट. सो दिस इज़ वन ऑफ द मेथड दैट कैन बी यूज्ड बाय द गवर्नमेंट, बाय द स्टेट बैंक ऑफ पाकिस्तान, बाय द फेड in case of US or central bank in case of any other country. They use this method of open market operation, means by buying and selling bonds, government can control or regulate money supply in the country. If the government want to increase or the policymaker want to increase the money supply in the country, in the economy, वो क्या करेंगे, bonds को खरीद लेंगे. They will purchase bond from the public, so money will go up, or minimum supply will increase. And if they want to reduce the money supply, they will sell bonds to the public. In this way monetary base जो है वो कम हो जाएगी और money supply में भी कमी वाक़ई हो जाएगी. So this is how and the policy makers or the bank, federal bank, can control money supply or regulate money supply by using open market operations. Reserve requirements is the other method which can be used by the Fed, which can be used by the central bank, which can be used by the State Bank of Pakistan to increase money supply in the country or decrease money supply in the country or in the economy. Now, what is the definition? It is the Fed regulations that require banks to hold a minimum reserve deposit ratio, right? So reserve requirements, right? It is the laws and regulation by the central bank, by the federal bank, by the State Bank of Pakistan, कि वो कुछ ऐसे laws and regulation पास करते हैं जिसके तहत जो कमर्शियल बैंक्स हैं, जो दूसरे बैंक्स हैं जो आगे लोन एक्सटेंड करते हैं, उनको बताया जाता है कि आप इतने परसेंट जो डिपॉजिट्स का रिजर्व, इतने परसेंट ऑफ डिपॉजिट आप अपने पास एज ए रिजर्व रख लें. दैट इज नोन एज द रिजर्व रिक्वायरमेंट, राइट. सो by introducing such laws and regulation by the Fed Bank for the commercial banks about the reserve requirement or the reserve ratio, the government or the policy makers can control money supply in the country, money supply in the economy. How it works, कैसे काम करती है. Now suppose if the central bank or the federal bank wants to increase money supply in the country, what will happen? So they introduce a law, they introduce a regulation in which they ask the commercial banks, the other banks, to hold less deposits as reserves, right? So they decrease the required reserve ratio, and in that case more money is left with the banks to extend loan to the customers, to the households. तो जब वो ज़्यादा लोन देते हैं, अपने पास डिपॉजिट्स एज रिजर्व्स कम रखते हैं, तो मनी सप्लाई में इजाफा हो जाता है. सो इफ द गवर्नमेंट वांट टू डिक्रीज द मनी सप्लाई, इंक्रीज द मनी सप्लाई, तो रिजर्व रेशियो में क्या करते हैं, कमी कर देते हैं. एंड if the government want to reduce the money supply in the country, in the economy, so what they will do, that they will increase the required reserve ratio, right? They will ask the central bank, ask the commercial banks, the other banks in the country, to increase or to hold more reserves of the deposits, right? So जब deposits के जो percentage of reserves increase हो जाती है, reserve ratio increase हो जाती है, तो there is less money available with the banks to extend loan to the public, to the customers, right? So in this way, money supply can be reduced in the country and the economy. This is how government can decrease money supply by using reserve requirements. So reserve requirements affects RRR, that is the required reserve deposit ratio, उसको affect करती है, and which in turn affect the money multiplier जिसकी हमने पिछले क्लास में हमने बात की. Now if the Federal Bank or the State Bank of Pakistan, here in case of Pakistan, want to reduce reduces reserve requirements, then banks can make more loans and create the money, more money from each deposits, right? So and vice versa. So by using this method of monetary policy, which is the reserve requirement ratio, government can control the money supply, can regulate the money supply in the country and the economy. Now this is the second method, required reserve ratio. Now the third method, जो monetary policy का है, third instrument है, which can also be used to regulate the money supply in the country and the economy. Now what is that? The interest rate that the federal or the state bank or the central bank charges on loans it makes to the banks, right? It is the rate when other banks or commercial banks in the country ask or request the loans from the central bank. So of course they have to pay a certain interest rate or certain discount rate, which is known as the discount rate on those loans, and by increasing that discount rate, federal bank can affect the level of money supply in the country and the economy. How it works? When banks borrow from the federal bank, their reserve increases, allowing them to make more loans and create more money, right? The Fed can increase B by lowering the discount rate to induce banks to borrow more reserve from the Fed bank. So what the federal bank can do that? The federal bank can decrease the discount rate. So if the government, if the federal bank or the central bank wants to increase money supply in the country, in the economy, तो क्या करते हैं? Discount rate को कम कर देते हैं. Discount rate जब कम होगा तो monetary base ज़्यादा हो जाएगी. Monetary base ज़्यादा होगी तो money multiplier ज़्यादा होगा और money supply economy में ज़्यादा हो जाएगी, बढ़ जाएगी, right? And vice versa, if they want to reduce the money supply, तो they will increase the discount rate. जब ये discount rate बढ़ा देंगे तो क्या होगा? Loans जो है banks को आसानी से नहीं मिलेंगे, मुश्किल से मिलेंगे. They will get less loan from the central bank. जब वो कम लोन लेंगे तो क्या होगा? आगे further जो है वो कम लोन extend करेंगे to the public, to the customers. उससे जो monetary base है B, उसमें कमी वाक़या हो जाएगी और money multiplier में कमी वाक़या हो जाएगी. And then ओवरऑल क्या होगा? मनी सप्लाई उस मुल्क में, उस इकोनॉमी में कम हो जाएगी. These are the three instruments that can be used to control or regulate the money supply in the country and the economy. Now, which instrument is used most often? कौन सा इंस्ट्रूमेंट? हमने तीन इंस्ट्रूमेंट की बात की. Number one, we talked about open market operation. We have talked about the second instrument, which is the reserve ratio, reserve requirement, and third we have talked about the discount rate. We'll see one by one now which is the most commonly used instrument to regulate money supply in the country and the economy. Number one is we talked about the open market operations. So that is the most frequently used method to control the money supply in the country and the economy, because this is one of the method which does not affect any reserve ratio or discount rate or anything in the country. It is just that selling and purchase of bonds from the public, selling from the public or from the central bank. So by doing that, central bank can control the money supply, regulate the money supply in the country and the economy. Second method कौन सा हमने discuss किया? Changes in the reserve requirements, right? So that is least frequently used. बहुत कम इस्तेमाल होता है, जिसमें ये कहा जाए कि बैंक्स जो है अपनी जो रिजर्व रेशो है, जो डिपॉजिट का कुछ हिस्सा अपने पास रखते हैं एज ए रिजर्व्स, उसमें तब्दीली करते हूँ और आगे लोन्स को अफेक्ट करते हूँ जो आप लोगों को, पब्लिक को देते हैं. तो दिस इज द लीस्ट यूज्ड मेथड इन केस ऑफ मनी सप्लाई कंट्रोल. द थर्ड मेथड जिसकी हमने बात की, दैट इज चेंज इन द डिस्काउंट रेट. It is largely symbolic. It is just symbolic, and it is not. It's not used to regulate, to control money supply in the country and the economy. The Fed is lender of last resort. Does not usually make loans to banks on demand. So this is the last resort by the federal bank, by the central bank. If there is no other option available with the central bank to reduce or to control the money supply in the economy, so then they can use this discount rate method. Otherwise, it is the symbolically used. It is just a method. It is not practically used by the most of the banks, But in emergency, if it is required, then state bank can use this method also. So what we can see that, so the most frequent method which is being used by the central banks, by the State Bank of Pakistan, in case of Pakistan, and in case of US, it is the Federal Reserve Bank. So in any case, in any country case, the central bank uses most of the time the first method, which is the open market operation by selling or purchasing bonds from the public, by selling bonds to the public, by purchasing bonds from the public. So in that ways, the central bank can regulate money supply in the country and the economy. Now, this was the first part of today's lecture. So what is the second part? In second part, we are going to discuss why the federal bank or the central bank cannot precisely control M. Why they cannot exactly, or what is required in case of money supply. So why they can't do that? What are the factors? What are the reasons why they cannot control precisely what is being required by the nation, by the economy, by the country? So we want to see why central bank cannot control precisely the money supply in the economy in the country. As we know that we start from, as we know that the money supply is equal to small m into B, where, as we know that from the previous lecture, small m is the money multiplier, B is the monetary base, where we have found yesterday small m, that is the money multiplier, is equal to currency deposit ratio plus 1 over currency deposit ratio plus reserve deposit ratio. So that is the money multiplier. Now household can change CR, that is the credit deposit ratio, causing M and small m and m to change. Now, as we discussed yesterday, whenever there is a change in the credit deposit ratio, this will affect the overall money supply in the country and the economy. However, banks often hold excess reserves above the reserves requirement. नॉर्मली बैंक क्या करते हैं कि जितने रिजर्व्स उनको चाहिए होते हैं उससे ज़्यादा कहीं अपने पास रिजर्व्स रख लेते हैं. तो what will happen if banks change their excess reserve, then RR, M and M will also change, right? So if the banks change their reserve excess reserve system, कि जिसमें हमने ये कहा कि normally बैंक क्या करते हैं कि they keep the reserves more than what is needed, what is required, right? So if that is the case, then if banks change their excess reserve requirements, then this will affect the reserve deposit ratio, which in turn affect the money multiplier, then which in turn affect the money supply in the country and the economy. Now in this case we look at the case study, banks failures in 1930. If you remember, हमने discuss किया था कि 1930 is the period in which there was a great depression in US economy, right? Now we have talked about that depression in detail. Here we'll discuss particularly with reference to the banking system, what happens to banks in that Great Depression. From 1929 to 1933, what happens? Over 9,000 banks closed in US economy. What happens to money supply? If 9,000 के करीब बैंक्स जो हैं अगर बंद हो गए थे उस वक्त, तो मनी सप्लाई को क्या होगा? मनी सप्लाई fell to 28%, fell by 28% in the economy. Now this drop in money supply may have caused the Great Depression. तो ये कहा जाता है कि इतनी एक्सेसिव जो मनी सप्लाई में कमी वाक़ हुई थी ड्यू टू क्लोज ऑफ द बैंक्स, so this could be a reason, this could be a factor of Great Depression. It certainly contributed to Great Depression severity. However, अगर हम ये नहीं कहते कि ये कोई मेजर काज है ग्रेट डिप्रेशन की, लेकिन ये बिल्कुल हम कह सकते हैं विद ऑथेंटिकेशन, कह सकते हैं कि इट्स सर्टनली, यकीनन इसने कंट्रीब्यूट किया टूवर्ड्स द सिविरिटी ऑफ द ग्रेट डिप्रेशन इन 1930, राइट? सो we can see the table about different parameters of money supply, monetary base and money multiplier, and see what happens. If you see this table में क्या है? It is the about money supply and determinants. What are the determinants of money supply? उनकी value क्या थी in 1929 and what were the values in 1933? So first, if we look at the money supply was 26.5% in 1929, and it goes down from 26.5 to 19% in 1933. And now money supply has two parts, currency and demand deposits. Now currency की जब आप बात करते हैं तो it increased from 3.9 to 5.5. Demand deposits goes down from 22.6% to 13.5%. Second component, determinant of money supply, is the monetary base. Again, here we talk about currency and reserves. Currency under this monetary base increased from 3.9 to 5.5. Reserves goes down from 3.2 to 2.9. Now, if we talk about the money multiplier, what happens to that in that time period? Reserve deposit ratio goes up from 0.14 to 0.21. Currency deposit ratio goes up from 0.17 to 0.41. So what we can say that CR increases, YRR increases. CR increases arose due to loss of confidence in banks. So credit deposit ratio में इजाफा हो गया because there was less confidence of the people, of the household on banks. CR arose due to loss of confidence in banks. RR, which is the reserve deposit ratio, rose because banks became more cautious, increased excess reserves. तो banks over cautious हो गए थे, उन्होंने अपने पास reserves बढ़ा लिए थे, ज़्यादा amount में reserve रखने शुरू कर दिए थे, because they were more cautious about reserves. So if we look in this table, we can find two things. One, RR roses and CR roses, and we said that CR roses because people have less confidence on the bank. RR rose because banks became more cautious and increased the reserves. The rise in CR and RR reduced the money multiplier due to increase in the currency deposit ratio and reserve deposit ratio. जब इन दोनों में इजाफा हुआ तो what happens to the money multiplier? If you see that money multiplier goes down from 3.7 to 2.3%. तो जब money multiplier में कमी वाक़या हुआ तो this affected the level of money supply in the country, in the economy in that particular time period. क्योंकि money multiplier में कमी हुई, overall money supply में भी कमी वाक़या होगी in that particular time period, which was between 1929 and 1933. Now, could this happen again? क्या ये दोबारा सूरत हाल हो सकती है कि मनी सप्लाई में इतनी ज़्यादा कमी वाक़या हो जाए due to fall in CR and RR? No, it is not possible because many policies have been implemented since 1930 to prevent such widespread bank failures. तो बहुत सारी नई policies introduce की गई, not only in US but in other parts of the world, about the banks in order to prevent this situation. तो इस situation से बचने के लिए, ताकि ऐसी सूरत हाल ना पेश हो, ऐसी सूरत हाल ना आए, बहुत सारी policies adopt की गई by the government, by the central bank. For example, Federal Deposit Insurance is one of the policy to prevent bank runs and large swings in the currency deposit ratio. So Federal Deposit Insurance basically is one kind of policy that is adopted by the governments or by the state bank, by the federal banks of the countries, so that they can prevent banks to run in large swings in currency deposit ratio. So there will be less fluctuations, less ups and downs in the currency deposit ratio with the banks. अभी तक जो हमने बात की है, we have talked about the money supply, how banks can create money supply, how banks can control or regulate money supply or in the economy, and what are the factors that can affect the monetary policy or money supply in the country and the economy. Now we'll come to the second part of the chapter, which is the money demand. क्योंकि आप दोनों को combine करते हो, money supply और money demand को, and try to stabilize the economy, try to stabilize the money market. Now in this context, when we are going to discuss the money demand, we are going to discuss two theories of money demand given by economists. First is the portfolio theories, and second is the transaction theory. So we'll talk about these theories one by one. What we say in portfolio theories emphasize the store of value functions. If you remember, in one of the lecture, when we discussed about money, when we talked about money, we have discussed different functions of money. One of the function of money was store of value. So now portfolio theories emphasizes on that function specifically, that money can be used as a store of value. So portfolio theories discuss that function in detail and talk about and determine the demand for money. Now in portfolio theories are more closer and more relevant to M for M2 and M3, not M1. Right? So if you remember, we have discussed three definitions of money or money supply in the country and the economy: M1, M2, M3. M1 was currency plus demand deposits, M2 is currency plus demand deposit plus other checkable deposits. इसी तरह M3 जो है उसमें कुछ और deposits हम add करते हैं. So we have three different types of definitions given by economists about the money: M1, M2, and M3. Portfolio theories normally talk about are relevant or closer to M2 and M3, not M1. As a store of value, M1 is dominated by other assets. So if we use the M1, then as a store of value, जिस function पे ये portfolio theory base करती हैं, then M1 is dominated by other assets, other deposits. Second theory is the transactions theory. Now that emphasizes on the money function, which is the medium of exchange. We have discussed in detail money can be used as a medium of exchange. If we are an individual or household is interested to buy goods and services within the country, they can use money as exchange of goods and services. If we are involved in international trade, if we want to exchange goods and services between the countries, between the economies, so we can also use money as a medium of exchange, right? It also, this theory, transaction theories are also relevant for M1. So we can differentiate these two theories that on the following basis. When we talk about portfolio theory about money demand, and this is relevant for M2 and M3, not relevant for M1. It emphasizes in their theory about the money function of store of value. When we talk about the other theories, that is the transaction theory, that emphasizes on the money function, which is the medium of exchange, and this is also relevant for M1. So these are the parameters on which we can differentiate these two theories about money demand, which is the portfolio theory and transaction theories. Now we'll discuss these theory in detail one by one. Now according to a simple portfolio theory, money demand function can be written as M over P, as we know that is the demand for real money balances. M over PD is a function of the RS, RB, pi E and W. Now what is RS? RS is the expected returns on stock. RB, expected real return on bonds. Pi E is the expected inflation rate. W is the real wealth. Now how these variable affects the money demand function or the money demand in the economy? Now first is the real expected real returns on stock. Now if we say that the expected real returns will go up, this will help to increase the money demand M over P in the country and the economy. So we can say that RS, which is the expected real return on stock, affects positively to the money demand. Second parameter is RB, how RB affects return on bonds. If return on bonds goes up, तो क्या होगा? People or household would like to buy more bonds, and if they want to buy more bonds, तो demand for money क्या हो जाएगी? कम हो जाएगी. So we can say, and vice versa, if the return on bonds goes down, so instead of buying bonds, public or people will prefer to hold money with themselves, right? So return on bond has a negative relationship with the money demand function. Third is expected inflation. If people or household expect that in future prices of goods will go up, what will happen? The demand for money will also go up. The demand for real balances will also go up, because जब चीज़ें ज़्यादा महंगी होंगी तो उनको ज़्यादा पैसों की ज़रूरत पड़ेगी. They need more money to buy things to survive in the country and the society and the economy, right? So if people are expecting that inflation will go down in future, what will happen? The demand for money will also go down, right? So expected inflation affects positively to the money demand or the demand for real balances. Fourth factor जो इस function में है in this money demand function according to portfolio theory is the real wealth. If the real wealth of a household, of the country, of an economy goes up, what will happen? Real wealth के इजाफे से बढ़ने से क्या होगा? Demand for real balances भी बढ़ जाएगी. और अगर real wealth कम होती है, उसमें कमी वाक़ई होती है इकोनॉमी में, तो what will happen to the demand for money balances? उसमें भी कमी वाक़ई हो जाएगी. So according to portfolio theory, demand for real balances depends on the expected returns on stock, RS, positively depends on the expected real returns on stock. It negatively depends on the expected returns on bond, which is RS. Positively depend on the expected inflation, which is pi E, and it has a positive relationship between it has a positive relationship with the real wealth in the society and the economy. So these are the four determinants of demand for money as far as portfolio theory is concerned. Now we'll talk about the transaction theory, which is given by Baumol-Tobin model. Now a transaction theory जिसके बारे में हम बात करेंगे, which is given by Baumol-Tobin in his model. A transaction theory of money demand. In order to explain this theory, before we move further, we need to discuss certain notations that we are going to use in this model. We are going to use Y, which is the total spending done gradually over time. I is the interest rate on saving account. N is the number of trips, consumer makes to the bank to withdraw money from saving account. And F is the cost of trip to the bank. Suppose if a trip takes 15 minutes and the consumer wage is equal to $12 per hour, so then F will be $3. So these are the four things that we are going to use to explain the transaction theory of money demand. And what are those? Y is the total spending over time. I is the interest rate on saving account. N is the number of trips consumer makes to the banks to withdraw money from the saving account. And F is the cost of trip to the bank, and which we said that here, if the total wage for a consumer is equal to $12 for an hour, then F would be $3 if it takes 50 minutes to go to the bank and come back after withdrawing the money. Now, money holdings over the years. If you look in this diagram, on y-axis we are measuring money holdings, on x-axis we have taken time. We have this line which is the income line, and as we said that if n is 1, if this customer or consumer make the first trip to the bank to withdraw the money, then the average holding is y over 2. So average holding over the year, if it makes one trip to the bank, is y over 2. Now money holding in this slide again will continue if n is equal to 2. If the customers or the consumer visit twice to a bank, then what will happen? So we have this kind of curve which is between the money holding and time. And in this case, the average money holding will be y over 4. We'll continue if it makes 3 trips in a year to a bank. If n is equal to 3, then average holding will be y over 6. And so on. So what is the cost of holding money in this case? In general, average money holding is equal to y over 2n. As we said that the average money holding or the money demand is equal to y over 2n. Y is the total spending over the year. 2n is the number of trips multiplied by 2 give us the average money holding of a person, of a consumer during a particular time period. Now what is the foregone interest on these holding? अगर आप कुछ पैसा अपने पास रखते हैं, if consumer hold money with themselves, तो naturally they are foregoing certain interest on that money if they put or deposit that money with the banks which they are holding. Now foregone interest is I, which is equal to I into y over 2n. So it is the amount which is foregone if you hold y over 2n as a holding of money in a particular time. Now what is the cost of n trips to the bank? If consumer makes n trips to the bank to withdraw the money in a particular year from the saving account, then what would be the cost? That is equal to f into n. So thus we can write the total cost of the money is equal to I, which is the interest rate, I y over 2n plus f into n. Now if we have the given values of y, I and f, so consumer chooses n to minimize the total cost. तो अगर हमारे पास हमें पता हो what is the value of y, what is the value of I, what is the value of f, तो consumer जो है इतने trips choose करेगा, will try to select those number of trips to the banks which minimizes its total cost. राइट, जिससे उसकी टोटल कास्ट में कमी वाक़या हो जाए. Now finding the cost minimizing n. What is the cost that minimizes the number of trips to the banks and that minimizes total cost? What is the minimized n? What is the n? What is the number n, or where at which number of trip the total cost of the money holder is minimum? So in this diagram we have on y-axis we are measuring the cost, on x-axis we are measuring the number of trips to the banks. If you look at, we have three lines. With blue line, it is the foregone interest on money holding. Cost of trips is equal to Fn, which is increasing. If they make more trip, it is positive, which is with the black line. And total cost line of holding money is the red line. If you look at this, when the total cost is minimum, if you see the total cost of the making trips to the banks to withdraw money is almost U-shaped. First it comes down, reaches its minimum level, then it starts going up. Now n star is the number of trips, or the maximum number of trips that minimize the total cost of the customer, total cost of the consumer, right? So n star is the point where, if you see in this diagram, the total cost is minimum. Now after this we can write the cost minimizing value of n is equal to n star, and n star can be written as y iy over 2f. It is the interest over f. f क्या है? f जो हमने अभी डिस्कस किया, f basically is the cost of trip to the bank, right? So to obtain the money demand function, we just plug in n star into the expression of average money holding. Average money holding क्या थी इक्वेशन हमारे पास? That was y over 2n. तो उसकी जगह पे जब आप वैल्यू रखेंगे n स्टार की, तो आपके पास जो मनी डिमांड फंक्शन आएगा, एवरेज मनी डिमांड फंक्शन आएगा, सो दैट इज राइट. हमारे पास एवरेज मनी होल्डिंग डिमांड फंक्शन क्या था? दैट इज y over 2n. So if we substitute the value of n here, so we will get और उसको सॉल्व करेंगे. You just need to remember, you don't need to solve it. हमारे पास एवरेज मनी होल्डिंग का जो फंक्शन, डिमांड मनी फंक्शन है, दैट इज इक्वल टू yf over 2i. मनी डिमांड डिपेंड्स ऑन पॉजिटिवली ऑन इनकम इन केस ऑफ दिस ट्रांजैक्शन थ्योरी, यानी कि अगर इनकम में इजाफा होता है तो डिमांड फॉर मनी में भी इजाफा हो जाएगा. सो वी कैन से दैट इन ट्रांजैक्शन थ्योरी, income is one of the factors that determines demand for money in the economy, and income here affects positively to the demand for holding money. दूसरा क्या फैक्टर है? F. F is the number of trips that also affects positively to demand for money. जितने ज़्यादा trips लगाएगा एक बंदा बैंक में, कस्टमर पैसे निकलवाने के लिए, उतनी ज़्यादा वो डिमांड फॉर मनी करेगा. यानी कि जाहिर है जितनी दफ़ा ज़्यादा जाएंगे आप बैंक्स, उतने कुछ ना कुछ पैसे निकलवाएंगे और डिमांड फॉर मनी बढ़ती जाएगी. इंटरेस्ट रेट क्या है? अफेक्ट्स नेगेटिवली टू द डिमांड फॉर मनी होल्डिंग. नाउ इफ इंटरेस्ट रेट गोज अप, तो you will prefer to deposit money with the bank instead of holding money with you or with themselves, right? So in that case, average money holding will go down. So interest rate जो है, rate of interest जो economy में, that affects negatively to the money holding or money demand function in the economy. Now the Baumol, after this we can say that the Baumol demand for money function can be written as y is a function, m over d is a function of I, y or f. तो अगर हम देखें, इफ वी कंपेयर दीज टू डिमांड फॉर मनी फंक्शन, एक हमने पोर्टफोलियो थ्योरी में बनाया था, उसमें हमने लिखा था कि मनी डिमांड फंक्शन इज ए फंक्शन ऑन विच आर बी expected returns on stock, expected returns on bond, and then it also depends on the expected inflation, उसकी हमने बात की, और real wealth. तो in case of यहाँ पे मैं लिख देता हूँ आपके लिए, आपकी सहूलत के लिए, कि in case of portfolio theory M over P D जो था क्या था, RS RB, pi E, W. Now in case of portfolio theory, the demand for money depends on RS, RB, pi E. This pi is pi E, expected inflation, and wealth, real wealth. But here in case of transaction theory given by Baumol-Tobin, the money demand depends on this thing, that money demand is a function of rate of interest, income, spending, and the trips which the customer makes to the banks to withdraw the money, right? So how BT money demand function differs different from the money demand function from the previous chapter? किस तरह से आप इसको डिफरेंशिएट कर सकते हैं? इफ यू रिमेंबर इन प्रीवियस चैप्टर जो हमने मनी डिमांड फंक्शन डिटरमिन किया था, दैट मनी डिमांड फंक्शन वाज M over P, D was LRY, right? Now how we differentiate this Baumol-Tobin's money demand function from the previous chapter demand for money function? किस तरह से differentiate कर सकते हैं? BT Baumol-Tobin shows that F affects money demand, which was not there in the previous money demand functions. तो ये कहता है कि F, which is the cost of making trips to the banks to withdraw the money, can also affect money demand in the society, in the economy, in the country. So which was not, this variable was not included in the previous demand for money functions. BT, which is again the Baumol-Tobin, implies that income elasticity of money demand is 0.5. If 1% increase in income, this will bring a 50% change in money demand function. And he also, by using the data, by analyzing the data, he also found that the interest rate elasticity of money demand is equal to minus 0.5. What this means, if there is a 1% increase in the interest rate, there will be a 50% decrease in the money demand, right? So what BT says about the income and interest rate, he found that if there is 1% change in income, this will affect 50% effect on the level of money demand. And if there is 1% increase in interest rate, there will be 50% decrease in the money demand in the economy. Now there is an exercise for you. You need to do at home, and what is the exercise? What is the question for you? You are going to see the impact of ATMs on money demand. During 1980s, automatic tellers machines, ATMs, became widely available. How do you think this affected N star, which is the number of trips to the banks, and money demand? Explain. So 1980s में जब ATM मशीन्स का दौर आया, तो आपने ये देखना है कि किस तरह से इस दौर से जो नंबर ऑफ ट्रिप्स हैं, N star है, number of trips to the bank to withdraw the money, has affected, and then how this affected the money demand. You need to explain your answer with reason, with logic. Now we'll come to the last part of today's class, which is the financial innovation, near money, and the demise of the monetary aggregates. Now, what are the financial innovation? I gave you certain example of financial innovation, like many checking accounts now pay interest rate, not only demand deposits, but there are many other accounts there are many other accounts that pay interest rate on deposits, and also it's very easy to buy and sell assets. It was very difficult if individual or consumer want to buy and sell assets in old times. It is very easy now to buy and sell assets which they hold with themselves. And it is very easy that mutual funds are baskets of stocks that are easy to redeem. Just write a check. You need to write a check, and then you can use the mutual funds for the purpose. So non-monetary assets having some of the liquidity of money are called near money, right? So these are the assets which are non-monetary, like bonds and stocks. These are the non-monetary assets but have some of the liquidity of money are called near money. तो इनको आजकल near money कहा जाता है क्योंकि इनमें कोई liquidity की कुछ न कुछ form होती है. They can be used as a liquid form of money, and then we can call these non-monetary assets which are bonds and stocks as a near money. So money and near money are close substitute. They are close substitute of each other, and switching from one to the other is an easy way in today's economies. The rise of near money makes money demand less stable. So if near money demand, if there is a rise of near money, what happened? That makes money demand less stable. तो इससे क्या होगा कि मनी डिमांड में फ्रीक्वेंटली चेंजेस आती रहेंगी एंड कॉम्प्लिकेट्स मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी. तो जब मनी डिमांड में उस नियर मनी की वजह से फ्रीक्वेंटली तब्दीलियां आती रहती हैं, तो दैट मेक्स मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी complicated, right? So cannot affect precisely to the level of money supply and money demand in the economy. In 1993, when the Fed, which is the central bank of US, switched from targeting monetary aggregates to targeting the federal funds rate, what will happen? This change may help to explain why the US economy was so stable during the rest of the 1990 periods, right? So that is the tool that can be used by the state bank, that is the tool that can be used by the other banks to stabilize monetary policy in the country and the economy. So dear students, this was all about today which we are going to learn. Before ending my lecture, before finishing my class today, I would like to revise, summarize, recap what we have learned today. First of all, in the first part of the lecture, we have discussed what are the ways and means that can be used to control, to regulate the money supply in the country and the economy. First, there are three instruments of monetary policy that can be used to control or to regulate the money supply in the country and the economy. कौन से तरीके कार हैं? Number one, open market operation. Number two, the reserve requirement ratio and the discount rate. Now what is the open market operation? हमने ये कहा कि open market operation एक ऐसा टूल है मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी का जिसको इस्तेमाल करके सेंट्रल बैंक जो है मनी सप्लाई को कम या ज़्यादा कर सकता है. Now what is that? How they do that? How it works? Now by selling or by purchasing bonds, the government can reduce or control the money supply in the country. Now if the government want to increase the money supply in the country, what they will do that? They will buy bonds from the public. So this will increase the money multiplier and monetary base in the country and the economy. Number two is the required reserve requirements. Now it deals with the rules and regulation that central bank enforce or introduce for the commercial banks, that they should hold certain proportion of their deposits as a reserve. That is known as the required reserve ratio. Now by changing that ratio, by changing that law and regulation that affect the reserve ratio, central bank can control the money supply in the economy. Now if they increase the required reserve ratio, if they ask these commercial banks, the banks in the country and the economy, to increase the required reserve ratio, So there will be less money available with the banks to extend loan to the customer, to the people of the country in the economy. तो क्या होगा, उससे मनी सप्लाई में कमी वाक़ई हो जाएगी. थर्ड जिसकी हमने बात की is the discount rate. Now this is the rate at which central bank extend loans to the other banks in the country, in the society. Now by adjusting that discount rate, that rate up and down can affect the money supply in the economy. Suppose if the central bank wants to increase money supply, तो इस discount rate को कम कर देगा ताकि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोन्स बैंक्स को मिल सकें, ले सकें और वो फर्दर लोन एक्सटेंड कर सकें कस्टमर्स को, हाउस होल्ड को, सो दैट मनी सप्लाई विल गो अप. सो दीज आर द थ्री इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स ऑफ मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी जिसकी हमने बात की आज, जो कि यूज़ किए जा सकते हैं टू रेगुलेट, टू कंट्रोल द मनी सप्लाई इन द इकोनॉमी, इन द सोसाइटी, राइट. सो बट which one is more applicable, which one more is practical, easy to use? So we have seen that the open market operation is one of the method, so that is most widely used method in the economies or by the central banks of different countries. After that, after discussing that, we have come to the second part of the today's class, and where we have discussed the second part of the chapter also, which is about the money demand. We have talked about the money demand functions. Now in that context we have discussed two theories of money demand. One is the portfolio theory of money demand, the other is the transaction theory of money demand. Now according to the portfolio theory of money demand, that stresses upon the money function, which is the store of value. And it also posits that money demand depends on risk returns of money and alternative assets. So according to this theory, money demand is a function of RS, which is the expected return on stock. Money demand depends on the return on bonds. It also depends on the expected interest rate. It also depends on the real wealth. So according to this portfolio theory, there are four factors that determines the demand for real balances in an economy. After that, we have discussed the Baumol-Tobin model, where he talked about the transaction theory of money demand. Now in this case, he stresses upon the main function of money, which is the medium of exchange. According to this BT theory, Baumol-Tobin's theory, the money demand depends on three variables. One is the interest rate, other is income, the third is F, which is the number of trips to the banks, or the cost of making trips to the bank. So तीन factors पे depend करते. It depends on positively on income, positively on F, and negatively on the interest rate. So this is was the last part. तो हमने ये देखा और उसके बाद हमने ये कहा कि how this is different from the normal money demand function जिसकी हमने बात की पिछले चैप्टर में. वहाँ पे हमने ये देखा था कि money demand depends on rate of interest and income. यहाँ पे हमने क्या देखा BT मॉडल में, here money demand depends on rate of interest as well as income and F, which is the cost of making trips to the banks, that also affect the demand for holding money, right? So this is all about today. So we have end up with this chapter of money supply and money demand. Thank you so much for listening, for giving me a patient hearing. I stop my lecture here till we meet next time. God bless you. Allah Hafiz.